Hello DIYers, today we're doing an oil change on a 2017 Audi A4 B9 Quattro 2.0T FSI. I already have the fluid extractors set up, so we'll jump right in. The fluid extractor goes in the dipstick tube here. It's underneath this cover, and the cover is really easy to remove. There's just 4 grommets, and they sit on these little nubs on top of the engine. It's very easy to find the tube and the oil filter housing from there. And here's the cap to the dipstick tube. There's no actual dipstick in the A4. Here are the parts that I'm using today. We have a Mon filter with the part number right here. And also, my recommendation is Castrol Edge, which is what Audi also recommends. So here's that here. And all of the parts will be listed in the description below. So don't worry if you miss it here. Tools and other specifications will be in the description as well. But if you don't want to look there, I'll have it up on the screen now so that you can see it. Fluid extractors are really easy to use and actually recommended by Audi for oil changes. And they cost less than one oil change at the dealership, where they're just using a tool like this to do the same thing. So here I'm just sticking the extractor tube all the way down to the bottom of the oil pan. The extractor is basically a vacuum pump, so as I pump this handle, it just sucks like a straw. So all we're trying to do is position the straw to be at the bottom of the oil pan, and it should get all of the oil out. So as it starts extracting the fluid, it's basically going to work like a siphon. So as we get through the center over here, I'm just giving it 1 or 2 more pumps, but it's basically going to start flowing by itself. So I'll just double check, make sure we're hitting the bottom of the oil pan. And as you can see, the oil's just coming out by itself. Okay, so we'll let this go for a couple minutes and we'll come back and check on it. In the meantime, we'll loosen the oil filter housing with a 32mm socket. Any 32mm socket will do, but I'm using an oil cap end wrench set from Gear Wrench. Links will be in the description below. Once it's loosened, you can twist it off the rest of the way by hand. Just be careful as you get it loose. There is still oil in the oil filter housing. You'll see here in a second, it's just pulled at the bottom, and it's going to slowly drain down. This is definitely what we want to see. The oil filter housing has an anti-drain back valve. So that just means that oil is primed in the filter even when the engine is off. So you don't have anything to worry about with these upside down filters that are at the top of the engine. All that oil from the oil filter housing should go to the drain pan and then get siphoned into the fluid extractor here. The A4 needs 5.5 quarts of oil, or about 5.2 liters, and you can see we're right about there. And we can pull the extractor tubing out. You'll see here there's really no oil on the outside of it, so it's kind of a visual confirmation that all the oil's out. And with that, we're done with the dipstick tube, so we can put the cap back on. You'll see that it snaps into place. It probably doesn't hurt to double check that O-ring to make sure it's in good condition. And now we can prep the oil filter. We're using a Mon filter, which I believe is the OE provider for Audi. Usually you would see a little Audi 4 rings here. Inside the kit is the filter itself, and then also the new O-ring. We'll start by replacing that first. I like to use a little shop towel to keep oil from dripping everywhere as I pull the housing off. The filter slips out here. That's only because I was letting it sit on top to let it drain a little bit more, but you can just grab both pieces. And we'll just use a little screwdriver here to get the O-ring out. If you have one, a pick works really great too. And just to note it for later, the O-ring sits in this little groove right here. It doesn't actually go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, now we can get all the new stuff on. The filter fits in either direction. I just like having the label face outwards. It'll click into place like this. Once it's in, it shouldn't come back out. And then for the O-ring, just roll it into place. Again, note that the O-ring goes into the groove and it doesn't sit all the way at the bottom. And now that the O-ring's in place, we'll want to put a little bit of oil on it. This helps keep the O-ring from kinking when we're screwing the oil filter back into place. Used oil is totally fine, but if you want to, you can use new oil. And now we can screw the oil filter back on. The torque specifications are actually written right on the oil filter housing. It says 25 Newton meters, which is about 18 foot-pounds. And you can see a little orange torque mark from the last time someone changed the oil on this A4. It's really cool that they actually torqued it properly. It lined right back up at 18 foot-pounds. And now that the new filter's in place, we can begin filling the car with oil. The oil cap is right here. Even says Castrol on it to match with the Castrol oil that we've already purchased. So let's take off this oil cap and begin filling it. The A4 uses 5.5 quarts of 5W30 weight oil. Audi does recommend that the oil meets VW 502, 505 standards, which is usually a full synthetic. While we're filling the oil, I hope you don't mind me taking the time to ask you to like and subscribe, and also to leave a comment. YouTube really cares about those metrics, so your support really helps me grow the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Because there's no way to quickly check the oil level, we'll go ahead and put all 5.5 quarts of oil in first and clean off and put on the oil cap so that we can start the car and prime the oil filter. I'll also show you how to check the oil level since there's no dipstick. We can put the beauty cover back on as well. Here's a better view of those 4 nubs that I mentioned, and the beauty cover's grommets. Just go over those, just align it and give it a good thump and it'll go in. You should feel each one snap into place, and once it's in, it's actually pretty hard to get them back off without pulling on it. And we'll give it one final check and we'll go start the car. So checking the oil level on this A4, and also most modern Audis, actually requires you to drive the car for about 5 minutes to heat up the oil. And then once you heat up the oil, you have to come back, park the car, let it settle for another 2 minutes. And then in this menu over here, you can navigate to service and checks. I usually just hit left on the knob from the drive select screen, and you'll see services and checks on the menu. Just scroll down, and all we're doing is going to the oil level menu. All right, so we're at max, so everything is good. If you don't see the screen, that means you didn't drive your car long enough, or you didn't wait long enough after your drive for the oil to settle back down to the oil pan. You can wait a couple more minutes and try again. Resetting the oil service reminder is also in the same services and checks menu. You just navigate to service intervals and then reset oil change interval. And for the keen-eyed members of the audience, no, I didn't drive 10,000 miles. I actually hit the 1-year mark. But if you're brave enough to change your oil every 10,000 miles on an A4, please leave a comment below. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this oil change guide on a 2017 Audi A4. I make videos like this on a weekly basis, so if you like DIY content for cars, please consider subscribing. I'm Alan, and this is Metaloop. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.